Okay, now back to feminist criticism once again. I can see that my face is a little bit in the dark because I just turned on the lights, so I seem to be in the dark. But remember me as a light person all the time. I try to keep my face light as possible. Don't want to have a dark face. I'm not a dark face of civilization. Okay, feminist criticism and the role of theory. Big title. A major division within feminist criticism has concerned disagreements about the amount of type of theory that should feature in it. What's usually called the Anglo-American version of feminism has tended to be more skeptical about recent critical theory and more cautious in using it than have the French feminists who have adopted and adapted a great deal of post-structuralist and psychoanalytic criticism as the basis of much of their work. So I have a claim, maybe you remember that in the beginning of the term I told you that if post-structuralism and deconstruction had not occurred in the world, we wouldn't have been talking about other critical theories, feminist criticism, Marxist criticism, or even psychoanalytic criticism today. Everything is based on deconstruction. When we deconstruct a text, we find the deeper meaning of the text, and in this deeper meaning of the text, we find the masculine language and feminine language, or Marxist theory and class distinctions, and so on. They seem to accept the conventions of literary criticism, treat literature as a series of representations of women's lives, an experience which can be measured and evaluated against reality. However, most of these are in fact American rather than Anglo, and this should make us question the usefulness of this widely accepted theory. English feminist criticism is, after all, often distinctly different from the American one. It tends to be socialist feminist in its orientation and aligned with cultural materialism or Marxism. So the British way of looking at the matter was a bit more socialist, and the existence of this kind of feminism has been rather obscured by the fact that certain popular books summarizing feminist criticism don't discuss it as a distinct category, but examples of this kind of works are Consuming Fiction by Terry Lowell, Victorian Writing and Working Women by Julia Swindell, and Sea Changes and Culture and Feminism by Cora Kaplan. Okay, a similarly important group was the Literature Teaching Politics Collective, which was also a series of conferences and an associated journal. This shows us one particular thing, actually. Most of the women critics and women writers in the world tried hard, and they struggled hard in order to make themselves accepted and understood by the male-dominated academia. In contrast to Americans, the work of French feminism is more overtly theoretical, taking as its starting point the insights of major post-structuralists, especially Lacan, Foucault, and Derrida. Yes, I think this proves what I say, because after post-structuralism, everything has changed in literary theory. And Lacanian approach and Foucauldian approach and Derridian approach have always been influential in critical thinking, especially in feminist theory, because you have to, when you are reading a feminist text or a Marxist text, you also have to psychoanalyze and deconstruct. The literary text is never a representation of reality or a reproduction of a personal voice expressing the miniature of personal experience, but it is, they write about language, representation, and psychology as such, and often travel through detailed treatments of major philosophical issues of this kind before coming to the literary text itself. The major figures on this French side of the divide are Julia Kristeva, Hélène Cizot, and Luce Irigaray. All three are best encountered initially in the various feminist readers now available. For instance, Kristeva's 1974 interview, "Woman Can Never Be Defined," is in New French Feminisms, a journal called New French Feminisms. Okay, and the feminist criticism and language. What is there in the language to make it a feminist criticism? Another fundamental issue on which opinion is just as polarized is the question of whether or not there exists a form of language which is inherently feminine. There's a long-standing tradition of debate on this issue within feminism. For instance, Virginia Woolf suggests that language is gendered. So that when a woman turns to novel writing, she finds that there is no common sentence ready for her to use. The common sentences are always invented by men. So then Virginia Woolf suggested that there's no inherent women language, female language in literary world, but the languages were always used by men, and there are traditional and conventional constructions of sentences which are produced and invented by male-dominated authorship in history. This is why in a famous analysis, history is called his story. You already know that. And the great male novelists have written a natural prose, swift but not slovenly, expressive but not precious, taking their own tint without ceasing to be common property. Okay, I'm at the system at the moment, so I'm looking at this camera and at that camera. I feel like I'm in a TV studio, so this is why I may turn away from you or turn away from you, two different cameras, because I don't know when my video on the system will appear to you, so I will share this one in YouTube probably tomorrow. Okay, she quotes an example and says that is a man's sentence. She doesn't make its qualities explicit, but the example seems to be characterized by carefully balanced and patterned rhetorical sequences. It was a sentence unsuited for a woman's use. Women writers trying to use it fared badly. It was not adopted by women writers very openly. So the male writers' sentences had been used generations over generations, and they had been invented by male writers, and those expressions have been accepted as the traditionally correct forms. But they were all male language. The traditionally correct form is like speaking about the unknown third person, as always he, with the pronoun he. This is a male language. Generally then, the female writer is seen as suffering the handicap of having to use a medium which is essentially a male instrument fashioned for male purposes. This thesis that language is masculine in this sense is developed by Dale Spender in the early 1980s in her book Man-Made Language, which also argues that language is not a neutral medium, but one which contains many features which reflect its role as the instrument through which patriarchy finds expression. So language is a very good way which justifies and confirms our understandings, as I said in the beginning, because in our understanding, when we turn the ideas into words, patriarchal ideas into words, and use them very often, they will be normalized in our minds, in our unconscious mind. And as soon as they are normalized, they will turn into an ideology of the society, and people will automatically adopt those things. Imagine the many millions of idioms that refer to man. Walk like a man. Okay. Adam gibi otur, adam gibi konuş, speak like a man, talk like a man, sit like a man, or speak like a man, erkek sözü, man's words. You see, so this turns into an ideology, and it also confirms and justifies the patriarchal understanding. All right, it's impossible. There's a quotation on page 127. Please look at that quotation if you have the book with you. It's impossible to define a feminine practice of writing. This is an impossibility which we remain, for this practice can never be theorized, enclosed, coded. It will always surpass the discourse that regulates the phallocentric system. It does and will take place in areas other than those subordinated to philosophico-theoretical domination. It will be conceived of by subjects who are breakers of automatisms, by peripheral figures that no authority can ever subjugate. So, here, the user of feminine writing, or in French, écriture féminine, seems to exist in a realm beyond logic. The user of such language is seen as a kind of freedom fighter in an anarchic realm of perpetual opposition. Right. Women must write through their bodies. They must invent the impregnable language that will wreck partitions, classes, and rhetorics, regulations and codes. They must submerge, cut through, get beyond the ultimate reserved discourse. It is difficult because for thousands of years, a generation of and the tradition of writing has been created, and this writing has partitions. It divides the genders. It determines the gender roles. It determines the classes and divisions between classes. And the rhetoric, like manly word, behave manly, this kind of rhetoric creates some regulations and codes. So it is difficult to penetrate into those codes. Écriture féminine, female writing, then, is by its nature transgressive, rule transcending. It overrules the regulations and principles. But it is clear that the notion, as put forward by Caesar, raises many problems. The realm of the body, for instance, is seen as somehow immune to social and gender conditioning, and able to issue forth a pure essence of the feminine. Such essentialism is difficult to square with a feminism which emphasizes femininity as a social construct, not a given entity which is somehow just mysteriously there. Further expression of the notion of female writing is found in the writing of Julia Kristeva. Okay. Kristeva uses the terms, the symbolic and semiotic, to designate two different aspects of language. In her essay, The System and the Speaking Subject, the symbolic aspect is associated with authority and order, fathers, repression and control, the family, normalcy, normative, classico-psychological tending discourse, all of which are just so many characteristics of fascist ideology. So, what are the characteristics of this fascist ideology? Normalcy, authority, normality, normative psychological discourse. What are the norms and who determines those norms of the society? So these are considered by Kristeva as the fascistic principles. By contrast, the semiotic aspect of discourse is characterized not by logic and order, but by displacement, slippage, condensation, which suggests again a much looser, more randomized way of making connections, which increases the available range of possibilities. So we should stress that the symbolic and semiotic are not two different kinds of language, but two different aspects of language. When I say semiotic, for example, I need to use science, semiotic science, and semiotic science are determinants of ideological meanings all the time, semiology. I can show you the color red, not only to show you the color red, but to show you the connotations of red. This is a semiotic language. But on the other hand, symbolism is not ideological. It only symbolizes single concepts in the text. Therefore, symbolical and semiotic languages are used in the feminine writing as opposed to the symbolisms and semiology of the patriarchal language. The model, again, is that of the unconscious and the conscious, the Lacanian reuse of these notions. So, back to Lacan again. The symbolic is the orderly surface realm of strict distinctions and laid down structures through which language works. This aspect of language is the side stressed by the structuralists, the Saussurean network of differences, but ever present in the linguistic unconscious. So, what do we mean by linguistic unconscious? It's also a Lacanian approach, because as Jacques Lacan said that language constitutes an unconscious mind, because our unconscious mind is filled with the sounds of language and the concepts and connotations of the language of our mother tongue, the language of our mother. And our first language in life shapes our thinking, shapes our understanding, and shapes our unconscious mind all the time. It shapes our reactions that we give to the world. And if the language that we speak is a patriarchal language, which is the present reality in all languages of the world, then we will be thinking and speaking in the same way, inevitably. So then the feminine writing, the women's writing, was a reaction against this kind of language use, and they were trying to create a new language. In the next section, I'm going to talk about feminism and psychoanalysis, because in all radical movements, psychoanalytics plays an important role. Okay, so I'm going to close this session again as a 20-minute long video, and then the next session I will talk about feminist criticism and psychoanalysis, which is on page 130. Now, I'm closing this session and see you again soon.